By the way, I think we owe a real vote of thanks to Charles Bates and the Twin City Yoga Society for creating this opportunity for us to be together. Thank you. As you get more comfortable in dancing through life, you can take the stages more lightly, even the stage of aging. I gave a lecture recently in Miami Beach called Straight Talk About Aging and Dying, with half price to senior citizens. And one of the things that I read at that lecture, I'd like to share with you. It's a poem by a woman named Jenny Joseph. It's a warning. It says, "When I am an old woman, I shall wear purple with a red hat that doesn't go and doesn't suit me. And I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals and say, we have no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along the public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain and pick the flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only bread and pickle for a week and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things in boxes. Oh, but now we must have clothes that keep us dry and pay the rent and not swear in the street and set a good example for the children. We must have friends to dinner and read the papers. But maybe I ought to practice a little now, so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I'm old and start to wear purple." I want to read you this one story from this book called Miracle of Love, which is 1,000 stories about Neem Karoli Baba, who is my guru. It's an excellent book, and you should all get it. I wrote it. And just to give you a little flavor of the kind of fun of the game of being with somebody you can't figure out. His name is Neem Karoli Baba. Well, I don't know. That's what they called him, and they also call him Maharaj-ji, which is a common name in India. It just means great king. It's called, many beings are called Maharaj-ji. This is a story told to me by a doctor with the World Health Organization. My wife had met Maharaj-ji and come to get me in America and bring me back to meet him. When we first went to see Maharaj-ji, I was put off by what I saw. All these crazy Westerners wearing white clothes and hanging around this fat old man in a blanket. More than anything else, I hated seeing Westerners touch his feet. On my first day there, he totally ignored me. But after the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh days, during which he also ignored me, I began to grow very upset. I felt no love for him. In fact, I felt nothing. I decided that my wife had been captured by some crazy cult. By the end of the week, I was ready to leave. We were staying up at the hotel in Nainital, and on the 8th day, I told my wife I wasn't feeling well. I spent the day walking around the lake thinking that if my wife was so involved in something that was clearly not for me, it must mean that our marriage was at an end. I looked at the flowers, the mountains, the reflections in the lake, but nothing could dispel my depression. And then I did something I'd really never done in my adult life. I prayed. I asked God, what am I doing here? Who is this man? These people are all crazy. I don't belong here. Just then I remembered the phrase, had ye but faith, ye would not need miracles. Okay, God, I don't have any faith. Send me a miracle. I kept looking for a rainbow, but nothing happened. So I decided to leave the next day. The next morning, we took a taxi down to Kenchi to the temple. It's about 8 miles away, to say goodbye. Although I didn't like Maharaj-ji, I thought I'd just be very honest and have it out with him. We got to Kenchi before anyone else was there, and we sat in front of his tucket, his wooden bed on the porch. Maharaj-ji had not yet come out from inside the room. There was some fruit on the tucket, and one of the apples had fallen on the ground, so I bent over to pick it up. Just then, Maharaj-ji came out of his room and stepped on my hand, pinning me to the ground. So there I was, on my knees, touching his foot. In that position, I detested. How ludicrous. He looked down at me and asked, where were you yesterday? Were you at the lake? He said the word lake in English. When he said the word lake to me, I began to get this strange feeling at the base of my spine. My whole body tingled. It felt very strange. What were you doing at the lake? I began to feel very tight. Were you horseback riding? No. Were you boating? No. Did you go swimming? No. Then he leaned over and he spoke very quietly. Were you talking to God? Did you ask for something? When he did that, I fell apart and started to cry like a baby. He pulled me over and started pulling my beard, repeating, did you ask for something? Did you ask for something? That really felt like my initiation. By then, others had arrived and they were around me, caressing me, and I realized then that almost everyone there had gone through some experience like that. A trivial question such as, were you at the lake yesterday, which had no meaning to anyone else, shattered my perception of reality. After that, I just wanted to rub his feet. One more announcement. As Charles pointed out, I gave you, or most of you, I guess, a copy of this little handout, and on it is a list of things that if you get interested in tithing, you might want to acknowledge or notice. They're good organizations. And one of them is called the Seva Foundation, and the address is in there. And that's a project which I'm involved with, which is really trying to work with preventable and curable blindness in the world. It turns out that 80% of the world's blindness is preventable and curable. It's mostly in third world countries, and it's preventable with tetracycline drops or vitamins, and it's curable with cataract surgery. And at this moment, for example, there are 7 to 9 million people in India waiting for a cataract operation, which with their present technology in the mobile eye hospitals takes 4 minutes, and it costs $10. And some of them are 20 years old, and they will wait the rest of their lives and never have the surgery because there isn't the $10 or the 4 minutes. And so we've just taken on the project. We're working in Nepal at the moment, just catching up with the backlog and training people and getting the whole thing moving again. And each year I do some project to help that. And this year I am raffling off my van. And I have a 1974 Dodge van that gets the phenomenal mileage of 9.5 miles to a gallon. And it uses 1 quart of oil every 500 miles. And for $10, I would deliver it directly to your home if you won the van. And you could be in the raffle. And the raffle is going to be July 4th. And it has cruise control and stereophonic sound and a flip top and an awning and a bed and cabinets, and it's got a lot of love in it. So if you want to play and want to help that project, it's the Seva Foundation. It's in that little booklet. It's the Seva Foundation, just Chelsea, Michigan gets there. Okay, that is all the announcements. Let's play Ask Dr. Das. Now let me explain to you, in this game, I'll repeat the questions, and you'll have to say them loud if you're up there, but I'll hear them. And raise your hand and I'll acknowledge it. And but understand this, that I am a little like the wise man in Thurber's fairy tale called The 13 Clocks. The wise man gives good advice to the prince as to how to save the princess. But then he says, I must tell you, sire, that I am under a curse, and 50% of the time I'm wrong, and I don't know which 50% it is. And I am under that predicament that everything I say sounds like truth to me. So I wouldn't know it if I wouldn't know. So you have to listen with your heart. And if what I say feels good, use it. And if not, just run it through like Chinese food and figure it's just my mashugana business. That's a Sanskrit word that means confused. Okay, you can ask anything you'd like, and I'll repeat the questions and try to give straight answers. Questions? Yeah.
You said earlier that you addressed the question of how we enter into this incarnation. Would you do that, please?
How we enter into this incarnation. Well, part of the answer I did give in terms of that creative act of choosing to turn away from light to enter in. But in talking with Emmanuel about something that might be relevant to the way you're asking the question, about fetuses and the soul coming into the fetus, things like that. Emmanuel said some great things. He said, very often, he said, the soul of the being that's entering and the soul of the mother are old friends, so that the soul comes in early to hang out with the mother during the pregnancy. That's a nice image. And he said, because otherwise, he said, you wouldn't constrict yourself prematurely unnecessarily, meaning you'd come in later. And then he said, but sometimes, and this is a far one, he says, sometimes, a friend of mine is here tonight who's a geneticist, he'll love this one. He says, sometimes the soul looks down and it sees that the DNA code that's unfolding is really not appropriate to the work it needs to do, so it comes in early to modify it. Wait till... But I get a sense of it's like an infinite regression, like the soul creates a set of predisposing characteristics of the kind of parents and the kind of environment and so on. But the soul itself is the creation of a more essency part of our beings and so on up until that first part that makes the choice, that has no karma but makes choice. Your human mind just can't conceive of that. You can only touch it in your being, but you can't really conceive of it. So it's like an infinite set of regressions into that which chooses to come into a body and to incarnate. But I really do experience my life as my own creation most of the time, much of the time. Questions?
Are you interested in past lives or the work you do historically?
Am I interested in past lives? Mine particularly, I'm not. It doesn't see, it's as if there are all these different methods, and different people have unique karma that makes their route through one route versus another route. And my route seems to be the route of the heart, and it really, now see, for example, if your route is that kind that works with astral things like previous identities or other astral beings and so on, or dreams, you're using other planes of consciousness or other time or space dimensions in order to free yourself from the solidity of this one. That hasn't been my particular method, so I really know nothing about my past incarnations. And I have no idea how many more I have, and I've stopped counting. You know, people used to, in my set, we used to ask, is this your last one? You know? And we'd all look wise. But now I have no idea, and it's all irrelevant. You just do what you do anyway.
Once in a while, I have an experience where I feel like, for one reason or another, I have an awakening, a spiritual awakening, like recently my brother-in-law died. And then I find that before very long, I fall back asleep. Can you suggest or talk about that, or how to handle that falling back asleep?
The statement is, now and then I have an awakening, like recently when a member of the family died and I awaken through it, and then I fall back asleep. Can you talk about the dealing with that issue of falling back asleep? To the extent that you attempt to push away falling back asleep, that is already another asleep mechanism. And in a funny way, this is a terrible thing to say when I'm being sponsored by a yoga society, but in a funny way to say, there's really nothing you can do about it. Because even your attempts to get out of it are all a certain kind of sleepwalking. But in the same moment, you can't not do something about it. So you climb a mountain, you follow a path, you do any of the methods that you are attracted to. For example, quieting your mind, or opening your heart, like meditating or singing or going to church or service or whatever, or pitting the mind against the mind through Zen koans or whatever. All of it will push you, but sooner or later you'll get trapped by your methods. And they'll keep you asleep, and you'll become a good meditator. Or, I love Christ, but it'll be a sleep kind of statement. And then you'll have to let go of that one too. But all of these are useful techniques to keep working, and you've got to hear what your own technique is. The first thing is not to be bugged about going back to sleep. Just experience that it was grace, that death allowed you to awaken for a moment. Because the minute you try to grab onto the memory of what it was, you're just holding on to an old dead butterfly. So you go back to sleep and then you wake up again. The fact that you're even asking that question is the awakening process at work. You have to stand back one step further and see your whole life, the awakening and the going to sleep, all as awakening. Just get into a bigger time span, and you'll be able to allow the dance to go on up and down and up and down. Okay? But you have to listen for your own method. And people have unique methods that they will be attractive to them. Questions?
Sort of relates to the example of the baker you cited before. Do you see the change in people's understanding themselves and possibly understanding their relation to the universe? What sort of social structures or systems do you see that correlate with this?
What sort of social structures, one?
Or systems, do you see that correlate with this growth of community and sense of self? And sense
well, this is like the question is there a new age happening, or does something new happen as a result of increased awareness in people? Yeah, the question is, these changes in consciousness, are they correlated with various changes in social behavior and social patterns? Right? Well, yes, they are, but you've got to see that before you try to anticipate that Earth is about to turn into heaven and everybody's going to get conscious, you have to appreciate the fact that the fourth grade is here because there are people that need to go to the fourth grade. And there is a fifth grade, but we're in the fourth grade. And when you're done with the fourth grade, you'll go into the fifth grade. You don't have to take the whole fourth grade with you. And the fourth grade's doing fine. And in a way, you're in this interesting paradox where you keep working to make heaven on earth at the same time you recognize that earth's fine. And that there is a heaven, and when you need to be there, you'll be there. That's where you're going to go next, which is just another place, by the way, which isn't free either. See? Because as long as you're standing anywhere, you're not free. I mean, Emmanuel's just working on himself, too. Now, there are certain social changes that happen, and they're very interesting because, like, here's a good one. We work out of a sort of, to the extent that we went into somebody training, we work out of a sort of a deprivation model. A feeling like we're starving and we don't have enough and we want more, all right? So let's take love relationships. That's a good one. You fall in love with someone. Now, what happens when you fall in love, one way of looking at it is that that person is a stimulus that is appropriate to your particular karmic production, your karmic condition, such that, predicaments, that's the word I wanted, your karmic predicament, such that that person awakens in you or allows you to touch the place in you where you are love. So you say, I am in love. And because that person did it for you, you say, I am in love with you. Meaning you are my connection to the place in myself where I am love. Now, since you have been out of love for so long, caught in channels 1 and 2, the minute you come into channel 4, you want to stay there, and so you get hooked on your connection. So you say to your connection, let's build a nest. And where will you be next Tuesday? And for the rest of every Tuesday from here on out, and where were you last night? And who are you thinking about now? And you get terribly frightened that you're going to lose your connection. Because if you lose your connection, you won't feel that feeling any longer, which you're very hooked on. Okay? This is just a model, but play with me for a moment. Right? So when we fall in love with each other, we are each other's connection to the place in ourselves where we are love. And it's all a deprivation model. And you want to possess your connection because you're afraid you're going to run out. And you're going to lose it. Now, let's just imagine that through evolution, you begin to open to that place in yourself where you are love, which is the same as the one that's called awareness. It's the same thing. It's a feeling where you are one with the universe and you're liquid and flowing with everything around you. Now you are experiencing in love. And now you look at somebody and you're in love with them. Now, you're still functioning under your old deprivation model. So you say, let's build a nest, right? Because you want to collect that person. So you take them and you build a nest. And then after a while you say, well, I'm going down to the store to get some tofu and veggie burgers. See? And you're at the checkout counter. You're still in love. You see, you're in this place because you're resting in it now. And you look into the eyes of the checkout person. And there it is again. Problem. Have you considered a menage a trois? See? You got a new problem now. See? Well, now what are you going to do? Are you going to look at anybody else? It's going to get complicated. You better start wearing glasses with mirrors facing inward because you're going to start a commune. See? I mean, what you're going to do sooner or later is you're going to have to let go of the model of deprivation that you've been functioning under, because as you start to rest in this other space of your being, you're going to find this peculiar feeling that you're going to start to be in love with everybody. And you obviously can't collect them all. And you get to the point where you can walk down the street and look at somebody and love them like you've never loved anybody before, and you don't have to do a thing about it. At first you can't believe it, you see, and you just want to save them in case you want them later, so you say, like, who are you? My name's Dick. Hi, let's have dinner. Well, gee, oh God, I hate to leave you, but Then later you just go and you go down the street and you go, hi, or who, or oh, do you feel what I feel? And then after a while you just walk down the street and you look at your lovers and you don't have to do anything about it because you're not going to run out. It's an interesting thing that channel 4 awareness of our beings, it doesn't run out. Like for years, I collected memorabilia. You must do it too. Old photographs, old love letters, my old bar mitzvah certificate, important papers from the 60s, all those kind of things. Well, a few years ago, I noticed that I move around a lot, and I just kept paying UPS to ship this stuff from one place to another. I never opened it. I just kept adding to it all the time, thinking later, when I run out of now, see, then I can go back into then and get And it suddenly dawned on me, why do you suppose I anticipate that I'm going to run out of now? I mean, it's less and less is enough for me. I mean, I can sit in a room with white walls and I'm fully content, which is bizarre. I mean, I'm really off the edge. So if I'm in that state, when am I going to open those boxes? I mean, when am I going to say, well, this isn't enough, I'll have to milk the past, So I had a big fire, and I decided to burn my personal history, which I did, bit by bit, I was milking it as much as I could for drama. It was the last time I'll see this picture, and I burned it and all these things, and bar mitzvah certificate, that proves I'm a man, and, here it goes. But I must admit that somebody was making a movie of me that day, and it's all on film, so. But the difference is they own the film, not me. It's their personal history now, not mine. Questions?
Did you burn your draft card?
Oh, I burned my draft card a long time ago. Yes. Yes.
It's been suggested to me that I learn how to swim in some as a way to learn how to live more fully in the world. Would you comment on path swimming?
It's been suggested that she learn how to swim this summer as a way of becoming more in the world. Every experience is a vehicle for awakening or a vehicle for going to sleep. And it depends on which awareness you bring to it as to whether it allows you to get more asleep. If you're busy learning to swim, you're just digging your hole deeper. And then you say, well, now I can swim. If you merely open to swimming, and swimming is, and then you're learning, but this is the bizarre thing, you're dealing with the paradox. The Bhagavad Gita, which is a very good Hindu text, it cautions about two things that keep catching you. One is the identification with being the actor, with being the doer. And the other is the identification with the fruits or the attachment to the fruits of the action. Like at this moment, there is talking going on, and I am. Now, if I identify with being the speaker, that forces you into being the listener. It's like a psychotherapist. People say to me, should I get psychotherapy? And I said, as long as the therapist doesn't think they are only a therapist. Because if they think they're a therapist, then you've got to be the patient. And you can't, I remember when I was a therapist, when my patients got better, I used to punish them. Because I needed them to be a therapist. I needed them for me to be a therapist. Now, when I can get to the point where I can just be with somebody and the vehicle for us being together is therapy, I'll be the therapist, you be the patient. You be the therapist, I'll be the, whichever. Doesn't matter. We'll play whatever parts we have to play, but we won't get lost in the drama of the action. We won't get lost in the actor. And furthermore, I talk to you. What you do with all I say, that's up to you. That's your karmic predicament. If I'm attached to, like if I go outside and just walk down the street ahead of you all and then hide in the bushes and listen to what you say you think you heard me say, I'll absolutely climb the walls. Because I'll hear people saying I said exactly the opposite things of what I thought I said. Because each person is receiving what I'm saying through a set of filters based on their own needs and desires and perceptions. It's like, this is an old saw of psychology, that motivation affects perception. Like if three of us are driving through a town and you are hungry, but you don't want to admit it because none of us want to eat. The other end of town, if I say, what was in that town? What do you remember about that town? You say, well, there was a McDonald's and there was a health food store I saw down the street. Now, I'm an old car buff, you see, and so I'm driving my car and I'm listening for the squeaks and I'm figuring where it's going to have to be towed to next. So if you ask me what was in the town, I'll say, well, there was a Shell station and there was a foreign car service. And if the third member is horny, what they will remember is who was standing under the clock. That's what they'll remember of the town. Each of us went through a different town. Now, you've got to really let go of the fruits of the actions. You do what you do. Like when I talk to doctors, I say the reason you burn out as doctors is because you're attached to whether your patients live and die. But the problem is all the patients die sooner or later. You're attached to the fact that spring should always be and there should never be winter. How bizarre. You see that when somebody dies, it's a failure on your part. Stop being identified with the actor. You do what you do because you're a doctor, and a doctor works to heal people. Whether they get healed or not, that's in God's hands. That's not in your hands. Don't be so presumptuous. The minute you can let go, so you learn swimming because somebody suggested swimming and you can't swim, and that's interesting. And then you open yourself to swimming, and swimming happens. You might learn it, you might not learn it, but you orient that way. It doesn't matter. See, the answer again and again is it doesn't matter, which is very scary to most people. They come and say, should I get married? And I say, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Because if you're at a point where there's a choice, if you do it, the part of you that didn't want to do it is going to be bugged. And if you don't do it, the part of you that wanted to do it is going to be bugged. So you're caught anyway. And you'll use it all to grow. From a spiritual point of view, it doesn't matter. From a worldly point of view, it makes all the difference in the world. See, and that's where the expression, it makes all the difference in the world, comes from. But let me not take humanness lightly. Like this winter, each winter I do a thing, I take some months off to clean up my act. And sometimes I go sit in Thailand in a meditation monastery. I do different things each year. And this winter, I just needed to get involved in relationship and all that kind of stuff because I'm like a post-pubescent. And I found myself at one point sitting in a bathtub in San Francisco, crying with jealousy. Can you imagine? I mean, me crying with jealousy. I mean, how bizarre. You know, that's absolutely off the wall. But there I was crying with jealous rage. You know, and I thought, that's bizarre. But it didn't stop the crying or the jealous rage. So I thought, well, I'll breathe in and out. So I breathed in and I breathed out. And I still had the jealous rage, and I was still crying, and my heart still was closed, and I still felt that feeling you feel when you... And I used every method that Ram Dass teaches, and none of them worked. I did an interesting thing at that point. Several years ago, I have a friend named Dan Goleman, who's an editor of Psychology Today. And he's a guru brother of mine from India. And he's written books on meditation and stuff like that. And one day, his marriage was coming unglued, and he was in heavy shape, bad shape. And I met him, and I said, what are you doing? He said, I've gone into psychotherapy. I said, you've what? I mean, I thought that went out with the Stone Age, you know. I mean, we spiritual people meditate. We don't go into psychotherapy, you know. He said, well, I'm in therapy anyway, defiantly. So I thought, well, he's been reading his magazine too much, you know. But a year later, I met him, and he was radiant. And I said, what are you so radiant for? He says, I've been in therapy. I said, do you think I should go into therapy? He said, yes. I said, couldn't you have reflected about it for a moment at least, you know? So then I thought, well, what does he know, you know? Now, as this winter, I'm sitting in the bathtub crying with jealous rage. I think this must be the time for therapy. So I thought, I'll go into therapy. I'll be able to help the therapist. But fortunately, the therapist was good enough to catch me at what's called that cosmic up level, where you keep pushing it away. That's the, you know, it's your turn to do the dishes. We're all one of those. And I found it extremely productive. It's like body and fender repair work. But you got to really do it. And I've really found that the deeper my faith, the deeper my involvement in life, and the deeper my opening to my humanity, and the deeper I open to all of the fact of what my human incarnation is about, my sexual desires, my fears, my loneliness, my self-pity, all of that stuff. And all that's there, and at the same moment, it isn't there. Like when I first started working with dying people, because I have a dying center and I work with dying people. When I first started working with dying people, because I had touched this part of my being that neither was born nor dies and was just awareness, I said, I have no fear of death. But I knew that something was off balance there. And because I was pushing away my humanity. And as a human being, I do have a fear of death. And as a divine being, I don't have a fear of death. And that paradox is in each of us. And what I offer to a person when I'm working with them and they're dying, or we offer at our dying center, is just truth, as well as we can have it. And just being with somebody open and true, say, sure there is fear, and sure there is not fear. And let's be together through all of it. And I feel that when I go into a room with somebody that's dying, what I can offer is my truth, which is all of it, not just any one side of it. Not look how holy I am, and not look how unholy I am. So I'm actually going back into Dick Alpertness now, these days. Questions? Sir?
What is an artist?
What is an artist? Well, I spent the winter the year before last. I'm in a relationship with an artist, and I spent the winter in Florence, Italy, with Michelangelo. And what I experience is that it's like Einstein said, I didn't arrive at my understanding of the fundamental laws through my rational mind. That he was so one-pointed in his problem solving that like a laser beam, he went through into that fourth and fifth plane, where at that point, all of it is. It's like a gestalt. It's a totality. And then when he comes back down into form, he comes back into the fact that he's a physicist. So he brings down out of that formless, if you will, a form, and it comes out equals MC squared. Bach goes in there, and out comes the suites for unaccompanied cello. Michelangelo goes in, and out comes David or the Sistine Chapel, etc. So in a way, the kind of artists that we honor are the artists that are listening and tuning to that part of themselves that is not conceptual, and then bringing it down into the grosser form of sound or visual or so on. Okay? It's like when you listen to a musician, one kind of musician when you listen to, you'll say, isn't he a good musician? Or isn't that a great composition? But a higher kind of musician who is listening, it will resonate with a place in you that is so deep in that you will just end up listening to what he's listening or she's listening to, and the circle is complete, and you're both, you don't even notice the technique anymore. It's just a method for taking you into the space beyond technique. Because what the ears can hear isn't the divine music. And what the eyes can see is not the divine vision. These are all just vehicles, doorways through into the other place. And we're only going to do about 2 more questions, then we're going to sing this incredible thing. Yes, sir?
Your people launched a media campaign about the imminent coming of the Christ in the form of the Lord Maitreya. Do you know anything about that?
Would I talk about the Benjamin Krem prediction of the imminence of the coming of the Christ, the coming of the Maitreya? I know nothing about that. I don't have any specific knowledge about it. I tend not to be very interested in what I call astral scenarios. I began to see, like, people would come up and they say, what about Armageddon? What about the New Age? What about, which one is happening? And I realized that no matter which one was happening, I'd still have the same thing to do. I still have to quiet my mind, open my heart, and help relieve suffering. That's what I got to do in life. And I got to do it whether the world's going to end in 5 minutes or 1 billion years, whether anybody's going to come save me or not. Right? What I experience is that that Christ is very much alive and well, that Christ is manifest in the hearts of those beings that open to the Christ. And so I'm really not waiting for anybody. If somebody comes and wants to take over the media, I think it's great. You know, I'm certainly welcome. I welcome whatever comes. I'll use whatever help we can get. But I'm not waiting. Questions? Yeah? Wait a second. Hold on. Hold your question 1 second. That one was, who is Emmanuel? I don't know. He's just a being that doesn't have a body that speaks through a woman named Pat. He's like Seth. It's another one of those kind of beings. He's just another being that just says it nice. I mean, you know, just because somebody doesn't have a body doesn't mean they know any more than people that have bodies. It's great, you know, because you say, well, that person, I got a message, and it says, you know, it says, get a Cadillac. And you got to realize that it's probably an old mafioso who's just out there without a body sending messages, you know, just sitting with a cigar and sending messages. You don't assume that because beings don't have a body there, because there are all these low planes. But Emmanuel is just groovy. I mean, it seems like a very high being. Now, what was the other question, sir? Okay. And what was the other question? Where he might be speaking from what level, I have no idea. He's just not in the body. Okay, one more question. Yeah?
What is your opinion on abortion and what happens to the soul?
What is my opinion on abortions? I'm going to have an opinion now. Just a minute. I'm going to get myself together and have an opinion. Well, I have a lot of information that's fed in that gives me that leads me to a conclusion that you can't have any rules in the game, that you've got to stay alive and listening, and that's true for every situation in life as far as I can figure it. Where's the person that asked that question? Yeah, I lost you. Okay. Like when I was with Trungpa Rinpoche, this kind of rascally Tibetan Lama, he said to me, when in the issue of abortion, you've got to appreciate that the soul of the fetus and the soul of the parents, the souls of the parents, are conspiring together. And sometimes the fetus, the being, the soul, enters into a hostile environment and forces the rejection of itself and affects the beings of the other two. It's a three-way street. It's nobody's doing it to anybody else. It's a three-way interaction. And I think that just as in any interaction, you have to listen in your heart to hear what you can do. I don't think we can get off so cheaply as having a rule book that says always no or always yes. I think we've got to hear, because I have met people who have had an abortion and they've done it out of a depth of their being and a motivation and a caring and a compassion that felt harmonious to me. And I've met others that have done it out of selfishness and out of a fear and so on in their personalities that hasn't felt right to me. And that's just me. It seems to me that the more you are identified with that part of your awareness that sees your incarnation as a series of lessons and a series of vehicles for awakening, the less likely you are to manipulate it all. So if you are somebody who is going for your law degree and then suddenly you find yourself pregnant, new moment, rather than, my God, it's ruining my model. See, you're more likely to let go of your model more quickly. Like in working with dying people, the major suffering is created by holding on to a model of who you were before you got the cancer. And then seeing the cancer as a loss rather than as a new moment and a new existential situation. It's like dealing with age. Age, you lose certain capacities. You're not as fast. Your body starts to break down. All kinds of things happen. This is opportunities for new kinds of parts of your being to come forward. So those people that aren't in such rigid models of themselves, but are more into, well, now, what has the day got to offer this time? New moment. They can be more flexible and they can shift more ground, and they are less likely to say, I've got to manipulate this to move it over there for me to be happy. And that's really a function of increased consciousness, that you take what comes along and you work with it. That doesn't mean you become passive. See, I've had this interesting dialogue, by the way, this winter with Dan Ellsberg, who's goes around getting arrested all the time. And Dan is a very interesting guy, and we've had this dialogue about anti-nuclear, the anti-movement, and Dan tells me all these terrible things that are happening and have happened, and out of that he feels an urgency and a fear because he's identified with his separateness and he feels compelled to act. Now I listen to all this and it goes into me and I hear it all and I'm still quiet and I'm still spacious, and he hears that quietness and spaciousness and he feels frightened that if he doesn't compel me to act, I won't act. And then I meet him at an anti-nuclear rally. And I say, isn't it funny, Dan, that both of us are here? And I'm here and I still feel the spaciousness and the quietness. But as I listen to my deepest being and I'm trying to honor my incarnation, I feel that it's appropriate that I'm there. So I'm there, not out of fear or not out of urgency, just because it's my part to play. It's the same way my father is 84 years old. And I spend like a month a year with my father. About a week every 3 months is about as much as he can take or I can take. We have a great time together, and I'm feeling like I want to move closer now because I'm beginning to honor the extended family and the way it all works. I'm coming back into what it means to honor family, what it means to honor extended family, what it means to honor the fact that I'm a Jew, what does it mean to honor the fact that I'm a man, what does it mean to honor the fact that I'm an American, that I'm part of an ecosphere, that I'm part of a species. What does all this mean? This is the learning of a lifetime. And these are learnings that apply to each situation you face as you come along. And the interesting thing is, as you're quieter, you begin to act harmoniously with your incarnation without getting heavily lost into the drama of it, without the angst and the Sturm und Drang that Freud talks about. Okay, we're going to do this song. Now, even if you don't sing, it's okay, you're going to sing. It's got 3 words to it. The first word is jubilate, which means jubilation. The second word is jubilate Deo, which means God. And the third word is alleluia, which means alleluia. And I've got a dispensation for all Buddhists, so they won't be accused of being part of a theistic cult. So, and I'll sing the song. Now listen so you don't screw up. We're going to do it in 6 parts, but we got to learn it first. Ready? Jubilate Deo, Deo, Hallelujah, Alleluia. We're going to take it a little higher. Listen again, don't sing. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, Alleluia, Alleluia. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, Alleluia, Alleluia. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, Alleluia, Alleluia. Again. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, Alleluia, Alleluia. Once more. Hallelujah, hallelujah. You're good. Okay. Now we'll just practice once by dividing in half. This is a simple one. We'll just divide down the middle. You all know which one you're in. And it goes, Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo. Now what you got to do is you got to do your part without screwing up. And then put your head up on the ceiling so you experience both parts at the same moment as you're doing your part, okay? We'll do it once more together to make sure you got it. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Okay, we divide in half. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Last time. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Oh boy, you're great. Okay, now we're going to do it in 6 parts. Now, and it gets really far out. All right. Let's see. We've got a group in the balcony, too. So we will divide about, a little bit about halfway back here, because it's dense down in here. It's about a little beyond halfway back, okay? And you part group, you right here are 1, and you're 2, and you're all 3, and you're all 4, and you're all 5, and you're all 6, okay? 6 comes down into about here, and okay? So it goes, Jube, 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 okay? And you'll see how well it'll work. You can't screw up. You gotta do it, you gotta do your part perfectly. Now, we'll practice again before we do the final thing, but this is a good one to go out into the night with. So let me just say beforehand that it's just been absolutely delightful being with all of you tonight. I mean, it's just such grace that we live in a society that allows us to come together to share this spirit, that we are aware on earth at this moment to share this kind of a blessing, to just be able to explore together. And in India, when we meet in part, we say namaste or namaskar. Namaste, which means I honor the place in you where when you're in yours and I'm in mine, there's only one of us. In other words, I honor the God within you. So may I say to you, namaste. Okay, here we go. And I'll say last time after a while, but let's do it until we really get into it a little bit. Now let's do it, we'll do it all together first to make sure we've all got it again. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, hallelujah, hallelujah. Once more. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Okay, here comes the big moment. You ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here we go. Jube, 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 jube. Hey, jube, 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 jube. Last time coming up.